It was inside the walls of the infamous Pankrak prison in Prague, on the 24th of October 1946, that the infamous Third Reich Chief of the Order Police, Kurt Daluege, was brought out to the execution post. He was someone who had, during the Second World War, around 120,000 active policemen and agents under his command, and he was very senior. Kurt Daluege is often overshadowed by men such as Reinhard Heydrich and Heinrich Himmler, but his police officers and personnel would be responsible for huge deportations that sent thousands to concentration camps. He was someone who was also ordered to carry out brutal and barbaric reprisals for the death of the aforementioned Heydrich in Prague. But at the end of the war, Daluege was brought to a war crimes trial in Czechoslovakia, where he committed many of his crimes, and he was condemned to face a brutal and ruthless execution pole. Welcome to the Fortress. To support, click subscribe for more history videos. Kurt Daluege was the son of a senior Prussian local government official, and he was during the First World War involved in the Prussian army, and he served in 1916 before his 20th birthday. He saw a significant amount of action in the conflict, and was part of the 7th Guards Infantry Regiment. He then was sent to the Eastern Front, and fought in a number of battles before he was invited to train as an officer, and he completed this regime. But then, when he was transferred to the Western Front, he suffered a very serious head injury and wound, as well as damage to his shoulder, and was sent to a hospital and declared as 25% disabled by the injury, and this was the end of his service in the conflict for the Prussian army. But following the end of the First World War, there was a huge amount of internal conflict in Germany and inside different nations. There were many radical groups who were upset with the fact that the Germans had to take responsibility for the First World War and foot the bill for much of the damage. This led to Germany being crippled financially, and groups such as the Freikorps, right-wing paramilitaries, emerged, and Kurt Daluege became the leader of a similar group known as the Upper Silesian Self-Defense. This group engaged in fighting with Polish people, and he then travelled to Berlin to become involved in the Freikorps. Around this time, Adolf Hitler began to rise throughout the local political spheres, and Nazism was beginning to spread. Daluege, who had embarked upon an engineering degree in Berlin, joined the Nazi Party and was officially member number 31,981, and was considered one of the old guard. He was involved in organising the SA, Hitler's stormtroopers, and following the Munich Putsch, the Nazi Party were banned in many places. Daluege helped the SA to circumvent this ban, and he became the leader of Berlin's SA and also the deputy Gauleiter in Berlin, with his boss being Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's close friend and Minister of Propaganda and Enlightenment. However, upon the request of Hitler himself, Kurt Daluege resigned from the stormtroopers and then joined the SS, Heinrich Himmler's later paramilitary group, who would staff the concentration camps, as well as commit many other crimes. In the SS, Daluege's membership number was 1,119, and he was given the job to spy on political opponents, and also the SA, his former group. There was an attack in August 1930 led by Berlin's SA leader upon the Berlin Nazi Party HQ, and Daluege's SS officers were the ones who were sent in to defend the building, and his seemingly heroic actions that day brought him further into the favour of Adolf Hitler, and Hitler wrote in an open letter to him, "SS man, your honour is loyalty," which became the SS motto. Hitler promoted Daluege to the rank of SS Obergruppenführer, and he was given command of the SS in the north. Further promotion came for Kurt Daluege within the SS, and he also became a member of the Reichstag, but he was known for being a ruthless and brutal man. He once claimed about anyone who was deemed a threat inside of the Third Reich that the consciously asocial enemies of the people must be eliminated by state intervention if it hopes to prevent the outbreak of complete moral degeneration. He was someone who did not care about the long trail of bloodshed that he would leave, but the German police force in 1936 were restructured, and Daluege was appointed the chief of the Orpo, or the Ordnungspolizei, the Order Police. He was the overseer of all uniformed police officers within Nazi Germany, but with his rise he would encounter some jealousy from other high-ranking Nazis, including Reinhard Heydrich, who later referred to him as an idiot. During the Second World War, Daluege's power increased, and inside of Poland his uniformed police officers and other agents were involved in rounding people up and then sending them to concentration and extermination centres, and they carried out many executions and public hangings. He was also present at a number of mass executions of victims, and he witnessed this being carried out. In 1942, Daluege was given the job of Deputy Protector of Bohemia and Moravia. Reinhard Heydrich, his once rival, had been assassinated inside of Prague, and Daluege was given orders to carry out brutal reprisals against the Czech people. In this role, he ordered and oversaw the razing of Lidice and Lazaki, two villages which were targeted, with all the men in the village being executed and murdered, and most of the women and children being sent to concentration camps. Throughout the Second World War, Daluege's forces continued to carry out their reign of terror and attacks upon civilian life, and this meant that Daluege's death toll was in the hundreds of thousands. In 1943, he did, however, have a very serious heart attack, and was hospitalised for some time. After he recovered, he was stripped of his responsibilities, as he was deemed being too ill to carry them out, and Hitler gave him a large property in Pomerania to basically retire and live on, which is what Daluege did until the Allies came knocking on his door. In May 1945, he was seized by British soldiers and was held inside of Luxembourg before he was brought to Nuremberg and was charged as a major war criminal. Kurt Daluege did not face the Nuremberg trials like he could very well have done, but instead was sent to Czechoslovakia, the country where he committed many crimes, as the acting protector of Bohemia and Moravia. Kurt Daluege in front of the Czech court was tried for a huge list of crimes against humanity, which included the execution of civilians, deportations of thousands of people, and the imposition of many into slave labour projects. He was arrogant and did not seem to care for his actions, and during the trial he claimed he was loved by 3 million policemen, and he tried to use the "I was only following orders" defence. He was ignorant to the chaos and death that he had caused, and the Czech courts did not hesitate but to sentence him to death on the 23rd of December 1946, and he did not have a long wait for his execution, as the following day he was informed that it would take place. Kurt Daluege was executed using the pole hanging method, and this would be used mostly inside of Czech and Hungarian lands to condemn many war criminals. It was also known as the Austrian Gallows. Daluege was brought into the courtyard of Pankrak prison, where the execution pole or post stood, roughly 3 meters tall. He was approached by the executioner and his assistant, who attached a rope around his feet and then passed this through a pulley at the bottom of the pole. Daluege was then hoisted into the air to the top of the pole using a chest sling, and then the noose was looped around his neck and secured to a hook at the top of the pole. The executioner and his assistant then worked together to bring the life of him to an end, and the chest sling was released, and Daluege jerked the short fall downwards, and the assistant guided the fall through the use of a foot rope. The executioner, who was stood on a step behind the post, had Daluege's jaw in his hand, and he forced the neck to one side, attempting to dislocate his neck. He was left hanging on the execution pole for some time, and death was confirmed. Kurt Daluege today is considered one of the forgotten Nazi war criminals of the Second World War, and he probably should have been brought to the Nuremberg trials to stand alongside Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and many others because of how senior he was. He was the chief of the Order Police, who were responsible for the deportations of thousands of people to concentration camps, and his men carried out scores of execution and torture all across occupied lands during the conflict. But inside of a Czech prison he received his comeuppance and date with the execution pole. Thanks for watching. To support the Fortress, please make sure to subscribe for new history videos every 2 days, and once again, thanks for watching.